Welcome to the First Step podcast, where we chat with remarkable people about their personal and business adventures. Our goal is to give you little jewels of knowledge that you can adapt into your life to form your own destiny. Some of our guests will be familiar, others not, but the common thread is they had a plan and took the first step to getting where they are today. Here's your host, Narissa Show.
Hi, today I'm thrilled to have on the First Step podcast Brent Valle, who you will find out pretty quickly is a force of nature with a passion for life and for making the world a better place every way he can. As a highly successful entrepreneur, rugged outdoor sportsman, and a true humanitarian, Brent is not content to just forge his own business and life successes. He earnestly works to bring others along for the ride. Brent has built and sold 2 companies. His most recent success, a tech startup he co-founded and recently sold in a multi-million dollar deal. At NGage Technology Group, he turned an initial $2,000 investment into a $27 million gross revenue company within 5 short years. This episode is about having a spirit of adventure when it's lost. Thanks, Brent, for being on the show.
Hey, Narissa, thanks. I'm stoked to be a part of it. Looking forward to it.
I know, it's a bright, gorgeous Monday morning in Brisbane. How's it look in Melbourne?
It's not too bad. The sun's trying to come through. There's some blue skies in with the grey. But yeah, no, it's nice. We're in the middle of winter, in the throes of winter down here. So if you're heading out to the slopes or down the coast, it's important that you rug up.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, okay. I don't even think I'll be wearing a jacket today in Brisbane. So
Lovely.
So feel free to be jealous. All right. So to get us started, I thought it would be great to get some context on who you are and where you grew up and all the adventures you had before starting your own business.
Okay, sure thing. Well, I've had a pretty interesting life, some would say. I was raised pretty humbly. I was originally adopted when I was first born, and I knew that from the get-go. However, I had no background around my identity in terms of what my origins were and where I was coming from. I grew up in a pretty normal suburb in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne. Raised in an Australian family, and went to school. I went to a primary school that I used to walk down the road to get to. And my major sort of influences as I was growing up in primary school was I loved the Magpies, the Collingwood Football Club.
Yep.
And life was pretty normal, some would say. I used to ride around the streets with my bike and go down to the milk bar and hang out with my mates down there, and we'd collect footy cards and eat chewing gum back in the day, if you remember, when they used to sell the packs of cards and they used to have chewing gum in them. So
yeah,
that was something we used to do. Yeah, and then we'd head down to like a local bike jump, and we're on our BMXs, and we try to push each other down there and see who could go the highest and see who could go the fastest, and of course see who could stack the best as well. So which I was quite good at, being a pretty reckless free spirit back then, as I am today as well. So yeah, and I grew up in a pretty humble household. We weren't, it didn't come from a place of privilege. My mum and dad were both hard workers, battling types, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then so that led through to going to high school, and some of the influences I had around then at that time were a different set of friends, and there were challenges along the way, of course. Mum and dad decided to split up halfway while in my teenage years, and during that was an exceptionally challenging time for myself, where I made some pretty poor decisions and did some things that probably didn't help me get to where I am today. But it's all part of the learning experience, and I wouldn't change any of that. Because it's made me the person who I am as well. So, but yeah, pretty normal life, I'd say, if normal's the word we want to use. But pretty standard upbringing, nothing fancy. I spent a lot of time with my mum and also my grandmother. They were massive influences on me back then.
Okay.
And I think that's where a lot of my passion and my heart for others comes from, especially from my grandmother, who passed away a few years ago. So. Yeah.
So when did you have your first entrepreneurial experience?
Oh, well, I was just a little kid, and I was always looking for stuff to do, and I was actually an only child as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that made me be pretty creative, and I got really good at playing Monopoly by myself. As well as and I used to win every single time, even if I did have to cheat. So But my first entrepreneurial experience came from, I was sitting around one day and I was like, I was collecting every year the footy card series will come out and you try to collect a set of each of the teams. And there was this time I didn't have the set of all the teams. So I was like, I've got to get some more footy cards. I raided mum's wallet, her purse, and grabbed all the coins out of there. And what could I do? So I thought, you know what? I'm going to grab that bucket out of the laundry. I'm going to grab some of that dishwashing liquid out of below the sink, and I'm going to go knock on the next door neighbour's house. I'm going to knock on their door, and I'm going to go offer to wash their cards to get $2. And that was pretty much one of my first entrepreneurial experiences. So I went next door, knocked on the door. Bruce, who was the next door neighbour, Bruce Quinn was the next door neighbour. He opened the door. He said, "What do you want?" Because he knows what I'm like. And I said, "I want to come and wash your car for $2." And he goes, yeah, go on. It's out in the street. Go and do it. When you're finished, let me know and I'll come and have a look at it. And if you've done a good job, I'll give you $2. So anyway.
What a steal for him. $2 to get your car washed.
Well, back then, like I'm talking 30 years ago. But yeah, exactly. So this was before I remember this was before I reckon the $2 coins came out. So I think the dollar coins had just came out. And so anyway, so I watched his car, but I had a problem. I'd watch the sides, I'd watch the back, I'd watch the front, but I was pretty short. I'm still short today, but I was shorter then. So I was trying to get on the roof and I couldn't wash the roof. So I thought, what about I just wash the side of the roof so that when he comes out to look at it, he'll be able to see that I've actually cleaned it properly. So anyway, I didn't do the whole roof. I just did around the edges.
Right.
I walked. Once I'd finished, I looked and I thought, that looks pretty good. I went in, knocked back on the door and I said, "Hey, Bruce, I've finished." He goes, "Here you go. Go away." So I've gone back to my house. I walk back into Mum. I go, Mum, I've got $2. I've got $2. I'm going down the milk bar. Anyway, the phone rings and Bruce calls my mum and they're on the phone and she said, "Yeah, okay, no worries. I'll let him know. Anyway, she jumps off the phone and she said to me, "That was Bruce on the phone. Did you wash his car properly?" And I said, yeah, I did. And she said to me, "Well, he thinks you didn't wash the roof of his car properly." And I said, "Yeah, I know, I didn't wash the roof. I actually couldn't reach it." And so, but he said not to, like she said to me, "It doesn't matter, not to worry." And all was good. So that was pretty much where I started off, having a passion to help others, and also, get some money for myself. And straight away I went down the milk bar and bought some footy cards and ate the chewy. And I still didn't get the cards that I needed, but it was a great experience.
Good. Okay. So when you finished high school, did you go to uni?
Oh, don't speak about that. Uni. I nearly got kicked out of high school.
Right.
Funnily enough. So, so I didn't go to university. I actually ended up going on the dole for a year, which was the government's way of compensating those people who had no direction or didn't want to work. I was the type who didn't have the direction.
Yep.
That was my challenge. I went to high school and I remember seeing the career counsellor and they said, "What do you want to do with yourself?" And I said, "I want to go and chase the footy." And so, and that was it. So, I didn't go to university. I did get accepted into do primary school teaching at Ballarat, but I didn't want to leave like my familiar surroundings where I was at the time. Yeah. So I ended up going on the dole for a year, playing footy at the Beaumaris Football Club and wasting my life away, and did that for a year.
Okay.
And at the time, Mum was still reeling from the separation with Dad and struggling financially. So she ended up giving me a bit of a tap on the shoulder and said to me, "Look, I think it's important that you probably go and head out and look for a job." So I politely agreed. And so I went through like just a local paper and it was look for a job. And there was this one that popped up. It was like an IT storeman or a store clerk.
Okay.
And it was like shipping out boxes and packages and that type of thing. And Mum said, "Why don't you ever go that one?" And it was just down the road. And I said, "Yeah, why not?" So I ended up, going for that job. So I had my first car. It was a Gemini station wagon, Holden.
Oh,
it had
sweet.
on the back windows, it had like punk rock stickers, Bad Religion, Pennywise, NoFX, like all my favourite bands.
Very classy.
It was super classy, right? And I used to have the long hair back then, being a surfer. And anyway, I remember getting out of the car to go into the interview, and there was a guy who I ended up being the boss of the business, standing out in the back stairs looking down. And he said, "Oh, are you Brent?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Come round the back and we'll get you interviewed." And I said, "No worries." And he goes, "I like your car." And I go, "It's not bad, eh?" Like in my casual manner that I do. And I said to him, I've just got back from the coast. I was down there yesterday. And he goes, "Oh, do you surf, do you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Oh, I surf too." And I go, "Really?" And I was like, "Okay, this could work out good." So we went through the interview stage, and he mentioned to me that he actually started Barlin Leg Ropes. He was one of the founders of Barlin Leg Ropes way back when.
Okay.
And immediately this really appealed to me, and I thought, he's the kind of guy that I want to be hanging out with and learning from. And I was fortunate enough they gave me the job, and the rest, some would say, is history. So that's how I got started in IT.
So you
And then
started as being a storeman in an IT. Was it a store, like a shop? Or
it wasn't it was a reseller, so they'd sell to companies, so end users.
Yep.
It was a very small shop front, but it was more about me fulfilling the orders for the salespeople who were selling all the products. It was about me facilitating and liaising with the drivers and packing the boxes to get the gear out and get it to the customer at the end of the day. So a real delivery type role.
So how did you progress from there to say, because you were in a sales role before starting your own businesses, weren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. So from
So
there, I've always been somebody who's been able to create relationships with people, genuine relationships with people, and that's what I did. It was quite frequently the sales reps would come down to see how their orders were going, and I'd always show interest in them and what they had to do. And eventually I moved through, everyone saw that I'd done a great job, and eventually I moved through and became a sales support for one of the other reps, and did a great job at that. And then from there, that cultivated into me wanting to actually do it for myself within the company, and so I did that. And then the company went through a bit of a restructure. So there was about 60, 70 people working there at the time.
Okay.
And there was a profitable part of the business, and that was holding up all the other areas of the business. And there was some redundancies that happened. 4 people were retained, and I was one of those 4.
Okay.
And I'm glad I really invested in the relationship with my boss at the time, because he was a surfer, and I would always bounce ideas around about that and talk about that. And he decided to keep me on as one of the 4. And so I was very fortunate, but I always put myself into a position where I could be fortunate as well. So, and simply by investing in other people, investing in relationships with other people, and ensure and try and help other people, whether that be a sales rep trying to get an order out on time, or a customer chasing up their stock, or whether or not it be a delivery driver who needed some help on directions, just investing and helping others.
That's perfect. That's a really good lesson, I think, for people, particularly when they're starting out their careers. But I think like when I interview people, a lot of it's take, and not many people have the attitude of give.
Yep.
And I really strongly believe that. I have a very similar philosophy about work that you do, which is you're part of a team and you're here to help everyone out. And you're right, it's what relationships is what gets you through. And for you,
Sure.
out of 70 people, only 4 of you remained. It says a lot about you and the relationships you were able to build. And obviously not just relationships, you're obviously good at your job as well.
Yeah, that's it. And I had a passion to work, and I had a passion to be really, really good at what I did.
Yes.
And that's what also complemented the people side of the people skills that I've always had. So, but you just got to work as well.
That's it. So then, how did that experience lead to starting your first business?
Yeah. So, it was really interesting. Pete had done a great job, and his business was great. He was financially set up, and he just had enough, and he just didn't want to run the business anymore. So me and 2 other guys who were working for him at the time, we showed interest in taking it over, and he was happy to set up an arrangement where we bought the business from him, and we got it for a steal. Yep. But for him, it wasn't about the money. He just wanted to see us continue to move forward, and orchestrated the finance around us buying it from him, and set it all up for us. And then we literally bought the company from him. We paid him back over 2 years, and we just worked our butts off to grow it and make it successful. And then just as we were about to pay it off and own it completely ourselves, that's when a business called IT Exchange from the States, but they were becoming a global presence, they knocked on our door and they wanted to acquire us. Just as we were paying off the business, so it all stacked up. I'm happy then. So it was bizarre. So we sold it then and there, and became part of a bigger global group called IT Exchange, and that was the first business bought, grown, and sold. So it was that was interesting. Yeah.
How did
So
they hear about you? Were you? I mean, because it sounds like you weren't looking for an investor, like for someone to buy you. It sounded like you were still pumping things out and going really well. What made them look at you?
well, what we were doing, we were bringing back. What we were doing is distributing all of IBM's end-of-life corporate equipment. So all their servers and PCs and laptops and parts that they were bringing back off corporate leases with big organisations. We were the provider for remarketing that equipment. So what I set up and did was I created a distribution channel in Australia, selling to Australian computer retailers. So PCs and notebooks, they'd then sell to mums and dads who are looking for a still working and functional computer for their family, but didn't need the latest and greatest. But at the same time, and what was more important, was that I created an international distribution channel by finding people in like Sri Lanka, Philippines, Vietnam, Papua New Guinea, the US to buy at bulk, I'm talking 20 and 40 foot containers, pre-loved PCs. And from that expansion internationally, that's where we came up on the radar. And then they ended up finding us that way. And that's how the acquisition went down. Like that's where the start of it came about. Yeah. So.
Okay, no, that's really great. So with IT Exchange, how did that lead into NGage?
Well, that's a good question. So we worked along, the business was successful, we transitioned across, we integrated with their team.
Yes.
And I've always been one to look at doing things better than what they've currently being done. So I'll look at something and go, we can do that better. And they brought in some external management to take over, and I'd often be reprimanded for being too disruptive. And that's just my style, and I'm comfortable with it, and I love it. And I'm a straight shooter. I see it as I see it. I'll call it out, and to me, everything's black or white. There's no color. It's this or that. And when you bring other people in who've got other managerial styles to oversee and run a business that had been grown by somebody within the company, and they've got conflicting views, I think you're going to have challenges. And eventually, so I had a 3-year term with them to stay on with them, and then they made me redundant at the end of 3 years because I was too disruptive, literally. So I walked out the door, and it was a parting of ways, and I think it benefited both parties at the time. And then that left me to think about what I was going to do next. So I thought I wanted some time away from the IT industry, and went and applied for a job at an automotive group of all businesses. I've got no experience in the automotive. And the company is called Mannheim. So they do remarketing of all of automotive construction equipment. And I landed a gig of national sales manager for truck and machinery, something which I had no experience about. But I knew about growing. I've always been able to grow something from nothing. So that's what I've been doing for so long. So that's where they saw my skill set sit. And I spent some time with them before they made me redundant 13 months after. So the reason I tell that is because at that time, just before I was getting made redundant, me and Jared were chatting about, Jared Bloomfield, who's my co-founder, we were chatting about going into business together, and he'd had a lot of experience working with larger end user corporations. And I had experience obviously in running a business and good at startups and marketing, and we just chatted, and we had similar values around delivering service, and we just said, like, one day let's do this. Anyway, as I got made redundant, I got the letter handed across the desk. I said, no worries, thanks very much. I was super stoked. I walked out the door, got in my car, I was driving back, and Mannheim is situated out at Neltona, which is out in Melbourne's west. So to come back from there, you've got to drive over the West Coast Bridge. And I remember it vividly. It was a sunny day. I looked outside, and I thought, what am I going to do now? And I thought, now's the time. I said, let's go for it. So I picked up the phone, rang Jared, and I said, hey, J-Bomb. And he said, yeah, what's happening? And I said, well, I reckon we start this company. And he said, why? And he goes, I got made redundant today. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay. He goes, what do you think we should do? And I said, I reckon we just do it. And that was literally, that's how it started. And there was no grand plans. There was no business plan. There was no detail. We just made a decision, and we decided we work it out along the way.
And
That's
how
all that
did you
happened.
meet Jared? Were you long-term friends? Were you just acquaintances? How did that relationship start?
We met through, I was actually selling him some IT equipment, or his company IT equipment that he would then sell to end users, the customers he had. And from there we met, and then not long after, he moved into the same suburb I was living in, and he had a passion for horse racing, and we're playing a little bit of golf at the time as well. And I don't know, we're both pretty witty and kind of unusual type beings as well. We're
Yes.
very different in our own styles, and I think to each of us was attractive.
Yes.
But underneath, all our values are the same, about helping people and making a difference, and that was what the real connection was built on.
Wow.
And that's how we started effectively.
So was Jared employed? Did he have a job at that point in time?
Yeah, so he did have a job at that point in time. We co-founded NGage Technology Group on the 6th of July in 2011.
Yep.
Subsequently, following up from there, we had a meeting, and we made a decision that I'd be employee number one for the first year, and I'd run the business on my own. And then at the start of the second year, he'd come along once everything had been set up, we had the foundations in place. So literally, we started it. I remember calling up a mate and said, "Hey mate, I need somewhere to sit. I need to start this company up. Have you got a room?" And he literally said, "Yeah, I got a room here for you." So I was sitting in this room. It was like 4 blank walls, and I was sitting there going, "What the fuck am I doing?" So, but yeah, that's how it started out. There was nothing special about it. It was just, yeah, just willing, two blokes willing to have a go.
Yep.
And that the rest is history, some would say.
So this is what I'm really curious about, because it's pretty damn impressive. With that $2,000 investment,
Yep.
and I mean, growing it to 27 million, I mean, it's hard to imagine, to be honest. So what I'm really curious about, and what I'm sure everyone else is curious about, is what helped the business explode? Was it in the first year? Was it in the last year? And what sort of things do you feel that you did to generate that sort of revenue?
Well, it's a great question, and look, you go back through the numbers from year 1 to year to 5, and the numbers stack like this. First year we did 590k in revenue. Year 2, 2.3 million in revenue. Year 3, 6.5 million. Year 4, 13.5 million, and then in year 5, 27 million. And so it really grew really quickly. Where our skill sets really complemented each other is Jared had great experience in selling into medium to large size corporate organisations, and I had great experience in marketing and creating a brand that people would actually adopt and feel as though they were a part of. So combining those two together, in terms of the marketing and branding and also the salesmanship, it made like a great team. And underneath all that was our core values about wanting to help people, but as well as that is to be different. And the IT sector in Australia has got a lot to offer about being different and being daring and risk taking, and a lot of people are just doing what everyone else is doing, and I get it totally. They actually, a lot of other organisations have actually got technical knowledge and technical specialties, and me and Jared didn't have any of that. There was we have no propellers connected to our heads that are spinning around. We just don't have that. We didn't have that expertise. So we thought, well, what are we going to do to be different? So we said, let's focus on what we do really well, which is from both of our backgrounds, which was box dropping, you could call it, which was just supplying PCs and notebooks and not adding any additional value.
Yes.
But let's make the experience of that better than what anyone else is doing at the moment. So I remember sitting on a plane vividly going up to Sydney for a meeting, and I was reading the Virgin magazine, and their loyalty there's a page on their loyalty program, and I was looking at it and I thought, that's pretty cool. As a consumer, I like loyalty programs. I dig them. I'm into them.
Yes.
I like being rewarded for my investment, and I just made a decision then and there. I said, let's create a loyalty program for our customers. And so we did. So it was called the NGage Partner Program. And we created this little rewards program where IT leaders were able to come along to events. So we put on these events. So we tie that in with quite often the sporting calendar. So it'd be a football event, a horse racing event, a golf event, to bring a community of IT leaders together. So we created all these little events, and at that time, a lot of the larger organisations, IT providers, were pulling back on their marketing spend. And we said, let's invest there.
Yep.
And so we created this loyalty program that had events, but at the same time, we created a tech program, a tech rebate program. So for every dollar that our customers would spend with us, they'd get points, which would accumulate to dollars where they could actually come and buy more technology for free. So that were the core elements of the partner program.
Wow.
And then we expanded it out, and we wanted to help out charities and organisations. So we jumped on with Orange Pigeon, and we helped them out, and we just created this little community and ecosystem of like-minded people within the IT world who shared the same values as what we did. And it was funny, the people that we actually attracted were a lot like us. They really cared about people and thought that business and work could be fun at the same time, which was especially something that me and Jared were massive on. It was really important that it's got to be fun. If it's not fun, then what the hell are we doing here? So, so the combination of marketing and salesmanship was definitely the keys to the success around it for sure. And our partnership was quite amazing. So, yeah, pretty epic.
Wow. So it sounds like things went fantastically well. Did you have any times during that 5-year period where things didn't go so well, or something that you tried didn't work? And if what did you learn from that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even at the start, like me and Jared still, even though we're quite similar, we had to get used to each other's style.
Yes.
And we had some challenging conversations in the first year, no question. Just understanding each other better, and also the expectations around what each of us was to do, and just nailing those out. And look, what I learned from that is that we were able to have the conversations, the difficult conversations, but then at the same time, we were able to quickly move on from them, learn about each other, and then move forward quickly, and not let the conversations or the differences get in the way of moving forward. So that was something that we definitely learned a lot from quickly. And then we had this enormous amount of respect for each other, and what both of our strengths were, and we allowed each other to play to those as much as possible. So that was a definitely challenging part, but it set up the foundation for our relationship and our partnership, or our marriage, you could call it.
Absolutely. It is a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk every single day. And actually, we don't talk as much anymore just because our heads are in different spaces, but we are still very close. So that would be something that was challenging. I think also as time went on, and when we got to that year 4, we said, we can get so far doing what we're doing, but we need to be adding more value to our customer set in way of specialised technical experience. So we started moving down the path of moving into being a managed service provider, something that neither of us had any experience around, but we kind of knew that we had to do it if we wanted to stand the test of time and cement our place in the market.
So how did you do that if you both had no experience in it? Did you hire people who had experience in it, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, so that was the strategy. So we said, all right, let's get people in who have got the experience. And look, to say that we were desperate, I think is overstating it. But we're really, really eager and keen to get this going. And I think through our process of actually deciding on who to invest in, we may have got that a bit wrong at the time and the way we wanted to do it.
Right.
We were never a company that wanted to go out and borrow a whole lot of money or get capital funding, because if we had have done that, we would have been able to grow this part of our business far quicker, but we just didn't want to do that. And so it was quite challenging. Things weren't moving as quickly as what we would have liked in that space. And so, we did win a couple of contracts, which really helped us in terms of DR as a service and backup as a service. But it was challenging for us, and we weren't moving as quickly as what me and Jared both would want to move at that time. And so that was challenging for us, and we were unsure about the direction, our ideas in our minds. We didn't know how to bring it to life, and so we were a little bit, walking along in the dark with our arms out and hoping we didn't bump into any walls.
That makes sense.
But we kind of did as well. And I think what was really important, what I learned from that, is play to your strengths as much as possible. I I reckon do what you're really good at, and I think you need definitely to branch out if you're in a competitive marketplace and add value in different areas.
Yep.
For us at the time, we often speak about it now. If we had have kept going the way we were going, how good would have the business been?
Yes.
And at the same time, you look and you go, well, it might not have been as good, and we might not have been acquired because we didn't have some of those managed service customers as well. So it was an interesting time. There was lots of uncertainty around the managed services play, but I don't think that's not the reason why we sold it. It's but there's a lot to be learned from playing to your strengths as much as possible and doing what you're really, really good at and what you love to do as well.
And what you understand. I get that. So then, if that wasn't your reason for selling, what events led you to selling the business?
Well, it's great. We started out, so we ended up having an original plan at the start. So we got a bit of butcher's paper one day, and I know I've still got bits of paper here, 3 bits of paper, and it was always a 5-year plan. And within 5 years, we wanted to be a company that had annual turnover of $10 million in gross revenue. So that was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 5-year plan in our mind. We smashed through the $10 million gross revenue, and got to 27. But we got to the end of the financial year. We'd had our 4th annual appreciation gala, and we sat down and said, well, what do we want to do? And it was like, both of us were like, well, we kind of proved to ourselves what we wanted to do, and we've done it. So what do you reckon we do next? And we said, well, why don't we go for 2 more years, and we'll expand out our managed services portfolio, and we'll invest in that, and we'll see where it ends up. Because we thought at the time the business wasn't attractive enough for somebody to buy.
Right.
And so we thought, all right, well, let's really go for it for the next 2 years. It may not have necessarily been what we wanted to do, but we said, let's just do it. Let's knuckle down, do the work for 2 more years, and then within that time frame, I'm sure someone will come along and buy us.
Mm-hmm.
So we agreed to do that. We started knuckling down, and then I ended up going away to New Zealand in August with my family on a snow trip just to get away, and went heliboarding, and that was epic, amazing. And then it came back, and me and my wife and my kids were snowboarding and skiing around the Remarkables area. I just pulled off a trick that I'd never done before. It was a 360 off a jump, and I landed it.
Wow.
And I was pretty stoked on that for an old bloke.
Do you have footage of it?
Not the one that I don't have footage of the one I landed. And hence I gave my phone to my wife and I said, Michelle, can you please hold the camera, and I'm going to do this trick again. Can you get it? Anyway, so I've given her my phone. She's shooting away, and I'm about to go down. And I remember coming in on all the wrong angle to hit this jump and hit this kicker, and came in on the wrong angle. And anyway, I didn't make the full 360 around. I caught an edge. My head went slamming into and it was really icy, slamming into the ground, and I suffered concussion. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. Yeah, I was knocked out. My wife, so my wife recorded that. She didn't get the one where I actually made it, but she got that. So I was knocked out. I woke up. I came to, and I was really groggy. I couldn't get up. Michelle goes, "Oh my God, we've got to get you down." And I remember just being like, it was like I was in space. I just didn't know who I was, where I was, and we managed to get down to the hospital that was sort of on the day unit that's on the mountain. Got there, and they were asking me lots of questions that I couldn't answer, and then eventually they got a 4-wheel drive to come and get me and take me down to the hospital. And so that was interesting. And I remember being really shaken up. And as the days progressed after that, I questioned everything, absolutely everything. And I thought to myself, you know what, what I'm doing, I've got a great business and it's making money and helping people, but you know what, it's not what I love and not what I'm passionate about. And I think my own mortality flashed before my eyes when I knocked myself out, and I was turning 40 that year as well, and I was like, I need to be doing something else. This is not what I love to do. This is not what I'm passionate about. Even though I'm good at it, it's not what I'm passionate about. And that was the start of the process of figuring out what to do next. And fortunately, it actually coincided. So I got back from New Zealand, and me and Joe caught up. And he mentioned to me that there's a couple of players who are interested in potentially buying us, and he's met one guy and wants to have a catch up and a chat. And so we had a catch up and a chat, and they expressed a lot of interest in actually buying us. And so me and Jade was like, let's do it, let's sell it. Even though knowing that it was going to be quite a process and it wasn't guaranteed, but we said, yeah, let's explore this. Let's go the journey with them.
Yes.
And then at the same time, I thought to myself, I asked myself this question: if they were to buy our company, would I want to stay working in it? Knowing my previous experience from being disruptive,
Yep.
and also knowing that, you know what, I'm not passionate about it, technology, and I'm passionate about technology from a user experience point of view, but in terms of what we were doing, I didn't have any passion for it. I needed to be doing something different, and I didn't know what that was, and it just played out slowly. So we're going through the acquisition period. We had a call. It was September. We had a call. They said, "Yep, they definitely want to go ahead with it."
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I said to them, "Look, I know there's a bit of a process that we got to go through, and I just want to let you guys know, if you decide to acquire the company, I'd like to walk straight away and be free from any responsibilities and be able to go and follow my passions and do that." And I said it'll remove a whole lot of cost out of the business, make it more profitable, etc., etc. And they were fine with that.
Great.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to know that here's a potential, the light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of hard work, and there was some tough times. There were some super tough times in the third and fourth year where we were working a lot, and not spending enough time with my family, and suffered from depression for 12 months and had to get a whole lot of counselling, and there was a lot of hard times along the way in that period, and it definitely did have an effect on me personally and also my personal relationships. But yeah, so we knew that I was going to sell. I had to figure it all out, and I said, "Look, I just want to go and follow my dreams." And they were fine, super supportive, and so from that point, we went through the acquisition process. So
when you say you wanted to follow your dreams, did you know at that point what that was?
So no, I didn't. And this is the interesting part. So I spent a fair bit of time in September watching a whole lot of snowboarding DVDs and movies on Netflix, actually.
Yep.
And there's two guys who really stood out to me. There's a guy called Jeremy Jones, who's a professional snowboarder and mountaineer.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a series on Netflix, so I encourage everyone to check it out. It's Further, Deeper and Higher.
Further, Deeper and Higher. Yep, got it.
Yep. So I watched those three, and I was like, I want to go and do that. I was like, I want to go and climb some mountains, and I want to go and experience the backcountry, and I want to ride some peaks in the backcountry, and not just seen. I thought, I want to do that. And then Travis Rice's film came out. He said third or fourth film called The Fourth Phase.
Okay, yeah.
The fourth phase, which is about the hydrological cycle of water and the oceans, the mountains, and the snow and precipitation, how all that ties in together.
Wow.
And I was truly moved by that too. So these were the influences I was watching at the time. And I remember thinking, I just want to go and do that. So that, and look, to be honest, that was it. That was my vision for the future phase at the time. I knew it was about adventure.
Yes.
I knew it was about growth, and I knew it was about thought leadership. That's all I had.
At the time, yep.
At the time, that's all I had.
And so when you're going through this sales process, so from the time there was interest to sale, how long was that period? Was it like a 12-month period before you sold?
September through to March.
Oh,
so
okay,
September
so it's not too bad.
to March.
So,
it wasn't too long. Yeah, it was only 6 months. September, October, 6 or 7 months. So, I mean, there's a lot of other acquisitions that go down that take a lot longer than that.
Yeah, that's actually quite quick. So with that, during that time, were you like, okay, I know it's looking like March is going to be when everything's finished, and did you have that stress of, I've got to figure out what this looks like or what my next step looks like?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hey, so I remember we had a meeting with the founder of Cirrus Networks at the time, and he said it'd be a 6-week process and the deal would be done by October.
Oh.
So like my expectations in my head was like, beauty, this is all going to be done. I'm going to be out and figure it all out when that happens. And it didn't play out that way. It was kind of like really long and drawn out in comparison to what was suggested at the time.
Yes.
And so I didn't have any idea at the time. It was about effectively just taking one step and then dealing with the problems from that, and then coming up with the solutions from that, and then taking the next step. And so the problem I had was I wanted to go and climb these peaks, and I wanted to go riding, but I actually didn't know how to get there. And the problem was, how do I actually get to these peaks? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? Who do I need to take with me to facilitate that dream? And at the time I didn't know. So I reached out to a mountain guide who I'd met over in New Zealand and said, hey, I've got this idea that I want to go and climb some peaks and I want to ride down them and I want to capture them and document them on film. So a cinematographer would be needed. And he said, okay, well, what's the purpose behind it? And I said, I don't know, it's just something I feel like I need to do. And I've been watching all these movies and I just wanted to do it. And he said, okay, no worries. So Mike was his name. He went away, and a couple of weeks later I heard back from him and he said, oh, I've got a guide who can take us, and I've also found a great cinematographer, a young cinematographer who works for Powder magazine in the US and Canada, and I think it'll make a good crew. And he said, do you want to do it? And I said, I was super unsure. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Yep, cool, let's go for it. He said, when do you want to do it? I said, March would be a good time. Just putting it out there, giving myself enough time to figure out all the bits in between.
Yes.
And also the responsibilities I've got at home and being a family man and business owner and parent and husband and all those things to give me the time. And so we went about, setting up this trip. And I thought to myself, being out in the backcountry and being out in the mountains, there's challenges, it's dangerous, there's avalanches, a whole lot of stuff that will go wrong. So I thought to myself, it'd be important for me to get my skills up so I'm not super dependent on other people on the trip. Mm-hmm. So I also went and booked in to go on an alpine mountaineering course in the January over in New Zealand. So and that was all about, walking around with crampons, using ice axes, self-arresting, setting up tents out in the snow, sleeping in huts, just surviving. And it was amazing. It was unreal. Wow. And it gave me a good foundation for the trip in March when we went out there. So I set that up as well, and that was it. That was all I had. That was at that time. It was, I was just willing to have a go and set up something new.
So where did the inspiration come for Future Phase, and what is it that you want to achieve? And talk us through how that, or how you've basically what it is.
Okay, so great question. So here I was sitting thinking, okay, this business might sell. I'm going to finish up in my role in what I do.
Yep.
What's my next thing? What's the next phase of my life? And so I'm watching that movie, The Fourth Phase. I'm like, what's my future phase? What's the future phase? What's the future phase? The future phase. And then it resonated that way. I was like, the future phase. And I was like, hang on, this is my future phase, but this is everybody's future phase. So for anyone in life moving through life, we've all got the next part in our life, or the future phase, I like to call it. And I found through what I was living and breathing at the time, here I was working out what that was for me.
Yes.
And then that's how the Future Phase name came about. And then from there, it was like, okay, so what's it going to be about? And I didn't have any idea. Went away, got through all the acquisition stuff, was over in the backcountry in Canada. The deal got done, signed my life away, walked away from NGage Technology Group, and I was like, now what? Yep. I was like, holy shit, what have I done? So we sold the business. So I had a good buffer financially.
Yep.
No income coming in. Don't know what the business is about, although all I know, it's got to be about what I love.
Yes.
And what I'm passionate about.
Because the name.
I got the name. I've got even color schemes. I had colors, it was all that stuff was nutted out, but what exactly was it going to deliver?
Yes. Okay.
And somebody said to me, they said to me, what would you be doing? What would you want to do if you weren't working? And I thought about it, and they said, go and do that. And I said, okay. So I thought to myself, what do I want to do? I said, I want to take people on epic adventures.
Yes.
I want to help people and business owners turn an idea into reality. And essentially that was where the footprint started for the Future Phase. And so I sat about how I could deliver value to people, because it had to be about that. It can't just be glorified travel experiences, because I'm not a travel agent at all.
That's it. You're not a tour guide.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And look, what I learned along the way is I thought about it from this perspective. I thought about every time I seem to go away and go surfing or snowboarding or hiking or getting away from my day-to-day, it gives me a really clear view and picture of who I am as a person, and it gives me perspective about what to do next. And that's why I created the Epic Adventure experiences as part of the 12-month signature program, because there's so many people out there, and especially in the corporate world where I've seen a whole lot of people, really struggling. They're struggling they're really focused on making ends meet, and they're focused on climbing a corporate ladder, and they're focused on driving a fancy car or getting a better title, all this stuff. It's just simply not important. And I thought to myself, there's a lot of people out there who are unhappy.
Yes.
And, I looked at my own life and me being unhappy with what I was doing at NGage Technology Group, especially when I was in the midst of working my face off, suffering from depression and doing it all for what? And I thought, I'm doing all this for the wrong reasons. I'm just doing this for money.
And on the face of it, you would have appeared to be very, very successful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, everyone's going, you've got a great business here, and pats on the back, and then inside you're feeling hollow and empty and sad.
What I find interesting about you, Brent, is that with a lot of men who suffer from depression or have those moments where they're just not sure where life's going, they find it really hard to communicate with someone or go and see someone professionally. Why do you think you're different? What made you see that you needed some professional guidance?
It's a good question. I've always been. It's a great question, and thinking about the answer now, it stems back to, I think, being a grommet growing up, like a young boy. My adoptive father wasn't around much when I was growing up, and I think I always looked for other people to get advice and guidance. So I was always looking okay, this fresh little kid trying to figure out life, what was going on, and looking for bits and pieces to model of other people, and always asking for help to help get the guidance that I needed to deal with whatever I had to do next. So I've always been a massive believer to ask for help and get help whenever you need it, and that's something that I put down to where I'm at today. I've never had any qualms about saying, hey, you know what, I don't know the answer to this, can somebody help me? And it resonates the whole way through my life. I just love asking people for help because I know that I don't have all the answers, and I know I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and from every single mistake that I've made, I've learnt the most. And I've just always felt super comfortable about talking about my emotions, opening up, talking about my feelings, talking about my journey, and that's something that a lot of blokes actually do struggle with a lot. I think chicks are awesome at it. They talk a lot about their emotions and their feelings, and they're always, just looking at my partner. She's got a good circle of girlfriends around her, and they always talk about stuff that's going on, or challenges they might have, or how they need help. And I'm my femininity, if I can pronounce the word the right way. Yeah, I'm really comfortable with it as well. I'm comfortable with both my masculine and feminine within, and always been able to ask for help, and always been able to talk about my feelings. So,
that's great. I think that's really good. I think that's really important for our male listeners to hear, particularly as you going through that time when you were really, as I said, business-wise successfully, and you had you've got a great marriage, got great kids. So it's very interesting that that you had I would say it's courage. I know that you probably don't see it that way, but I think it's courage to say, hey, on the outside it looks great, but on the inside not so much. So
yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think it's
so
really
courage is the wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of future phase, which probably leads into this, I know you're really passionate about 3 areas. You mentioned about the masks we wear in the workplace and how to create and develop authenticity in the workplace. So talk us through the story about how this has come about, or what you see in the corporate world with these masks, and how people can just be true to themselves.
Yeah, sure thing. I think one way to describe that is give an example of, let's say the sales process, I guess, would be a good way. So I was fortunate enough to look after new business with NGage Technology Group, and always had a passion for meeting new people.
Yes.
So I'd go to first meetings, meeting people for the first time, and my approach would be to be really open, really authentic, and really transparent. So I'd walk into first meetings, and I'd sit down with IT managers or CIOs, and I'd walk in and go, hey, how you going? And I'd just say, hey, firstly, straight off the bat, I just want you to know, I put my hand in the air, just want you to know I'm not an IT person. I don't know technical, I don't know IT as much as you do. And I'd be really upfront about who I was and who I was about. And what I would observe is that many people would be trying to portray something that they're actually not, trying to appear like they're an expert in something.
Mm.
When, I don't know, I think it's bandied around too loosely, being an expert. I think we're all on a journey and we're all learning every
Mm.
day. And so there's a lot of people pretending to be something they're not, whether or not it's their actual technical ability, or whether or not it's actually who they are as a person, or whether or not they're playing the corporate politics, or whether or not they're trying to get a
Mm.
promotion, or whatever it might be. And I just observed it, and I was really clear on it, and I could see it for myself. And through my approach, being really personal, I actually saw a lot of barriers disappear. I saw a lot of
Yes.
that stuff fall away.
I was going to say, you
And
really disarm people with your honesty.
correct, spot on.
Mm.
It's a really good way to language it. And so what I'd see from a first meeting would I'd see all these barriers just disappear, all this stuff just drop away, and through the course of a meeting, I'd chat and speak to them as if they were people, as if they were my friends or my family or whoever they might be.
Mm.
And I just talk and speak and relate and empathize. And so many times in those first meetings, we didn't talk about technology. I didn't talk about
Mm.
NGage Technology Group in what we could actually offer
Yep.
or what we were good at or what we were great at. And I'd leave the meeting after about half an hour because quite often the first meetings wouldn't go for much longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, hey, I just want to thank you so much for your time. It was really nice to meet you. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. And as they were walking away from the meeting, getting ready to say goodbye, it would be at that stage when they would say to me, in turn, say to me, I've got some stuff coming up that I would like to get you to help us with. We're doing this, we've got these notebooks, we've got these servers, or whatever it might have been from a technical sense, where they'd actually reach out and say, we've got these things coming up. And I'd be like, oh, great, no worries, more than happy to help you out with that. Just shoot us through the details, or we can catch up whenever you want to do that. And
Mm.
walk away from the meetings, and then it'd be a couple of days later, a week later, and there would be the opportunity to actually start providing some equipment or hardware, or that first engagement, that first sale. And it
Mm.
didn't come about from me speaking about how great we were as an organization, or speaking about what I was great at, or any of that stuff. It just
No.
came from sitting down, listening, empathizing, and investing in the other person. And it was really important. And I think from that perspective, that's how I learned about creating great relationships per se. And did some amazing stuff with it. And yeah.
So why do you, I mean, having, that's your approach, which I think I have a very similar approach to you. I'm not afraid to say I don't know and be very upfront in the process, because I think people are much more willing to share information, and they're comfortable when you say, you know what you're talking about, I don't, but I want to ask you questions so I can understand what you do.
Yep.
Why do you believe that most people are so afraid to be authentic?
Great question. So for me, I think so many people over their journeys have been conditioned to fit in
Mm.
by their friends, their families, their colleagues, whoever it might be. And in Australia, I think we've got a massive challenge around tall poppy syndrome. Anytime
Yes.
somebody's doing some amazing things, there'll be 101 people there to bring them down. And it's that culture of like being down to earth, Aussie person. And look, that's great. Absolutely. Be humble, be grateful, show that. But here, especially, people are trying to rip people down all the time. And,
Mm.
in the States, I think it's very different, where people are trying to boost people up. If someone's doing something amazing, yeah, right on, well done, that's unreal. And I think a lot of it comes back to people. Well, I think it all comes back to people caring too much about what other people think,
Yes.
and people just trying to fit in. And I know I stopped trying to fit in years ago, and it's actually
It's
it's
really
bloody.
interesting that you say that, because I went to a speaking course about how to speak in front of hundreds of people and different audiences. So if you're in America, this is how you've got to introduce yourself. If you're in Asia, etc. And what was fascinating, you're right, is the speaker, who was an international speaker, said in Australia, with your introduction, never speak it yourself. It's always get someone else to introduce you, because Australians do not like it when you say, this is my experience, or this is why I'm credible. Whereas in America, if you don't say how fabulous you are and talk through all your achievements, they don't see you as credible.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's really interesting about a different take on how, in even speaking in front of people, how you win them over or how to get them to listen to you. So I totally resonate with what you're saying about Australians don't necessarily pump each other up.
No, we don't, and we need to. I think it's something that I'm really, really focused on, and it's something that I do all the time. Is whoever I'm engaging with, I tell them how great they are, or something amazing that they've done, and celebrate their achievements. Because I know personally, it's not easy. Life's not easy. Business is not easy. There's a lot of heartache that goes into it, and there's a lot of people, a lot of things and factors and people are trying to stop you from achieving a whole lot of things. So whenever there's somebody in your corner shouting out, encouraging, complimenting on the great stuff you've done, then it absolutely makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
So I'm always one to call it out and praise people for doing some epic stuff, for sure.
I think that's really important. I agree with that. So in terms of yourself, like obviously on a personal level, you saw the impact of being true to yourself and being an authentic leader.
Yep.
How have you seen the business impact of other people that you've coached or mentored, where their businesses may have turned around, or their business leadership, their own personal leadership style may have changed from educating them about being authentic?
Great question. I've got actually a fantastic example too. Joe from Profi Financial Solutions has been somebody who joined the Future Phase Signature program, a 12-month program. At the Future Phase, he's been one of the first person to join.
Yep.
And in our first meeting we had together, he said to me this. He said, "I'm really scared and afraid of fucking things up." Excuse my language.
No, I love it.
Can we beep it, or can we do something with that?
No need. No need.
Great. Love it. Awesome. Now that I've opened the floodgates out, look out. But anyways, he said to me, he goes, "I'm really scared of fucking things up." I said, "Okay, so tell me more about that." And so he shared it a little bit more. And I said, "Look," I said, "at the end of the day, if you're who you are, then the people that you attract will be people who already think in a similar mindset to what you do,
Yes.
and they'll value similar things to what you do. And you'll find that by being you, you'll be able to, well, it makes it easier on yourself, but you'll attract the right people into your life and your business. And when you are communicating with them and explaining what you do and you're offering around that, the benefits for them, then you can just be yourself and explaining that. And you don't need to create this perception that you are something that you're not.
Absolutely.
Because when you do that, that creates a whole lot of shit and stuff that your potential client or your customer doesn't want to have to deal with. And you, as somebody who wants to facilitate it, doesn't want to have to deal with. So be yourself. You'll encourage the right people into your business and your life. And as well as that, when you get to that stage of explaining your offer, then you'll just be able to talk from your experience and your story and who you are, as opposed to the shit that you're meant to know. And he said, "Mate, that's great." And I said, "So with that, it might be great, but what are you going to do about it?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to go away and, so he was creating a whole lot of content for his business on social media. And so from that, all of a sudden, he's creating all his content and documenting his process of his business and freed up just to be who he is." And I watched literally as I watched how he was going with it all, and he was starting to get leads and like getting people who are interested in his business. And I'm like, fantastic. And it was purely from him being authentic to who he was, and talking from his own personal experience and his story. And it was as simple as that. And, his original fear was fucking things up. And that was stripped away, which enabled him to free him up to actually be who he was. So afraid of fucking things up was stopping him from being himself, which then confused the whole value proposition to his prospects and his customers. And it's amazing. So something as subtle, a subtle shift there can create this flow-on effect across so many different areas.
I agree with that. I think even in our own businesses, so I know you and I were talking about recently how we also sold our executive recruitment brand to 100% focus on Filter Global. And what's interesting about that was the recruitment brand was very, very conservative, very very formal, and it was not an actual true reflection of Efren and mine personalities, because people always say I'm really quirky and out there, and I like to be myself, and I'm like you. I'm very open, very honest, very transparent. I am who I am. You either like me or you don't like me. And I'm quite flamboyant as well. So I think it was really challenging being in a business, even though we created it, because we thought that to be taken seriously, you need to have, a conservative brand name, conservative colours, conservative messages. And when we launched Filter Global, it was like suddenly we're ourselves, bright colours, even in our messaging, the way we present ourselves, the way we communicate, our marketing, it's all very us. It's all very modern and
Definitely.
And more, I don't know, I say the same. And what happened from that is, for the first time, getting inquiries from LinkedIn, which we never had inquiries owning our business previously in 9 years, but suddenly we have all these inquiries just from LinkedIn. And I think it's true. I think it's about, because you're just being yourself, people can sense that.
And that's how we originally
hooked
up, right?
I know.
Because you posted a photo on LinkedIn with a surfer doing an aerial, and I looked at it and it appealed to me, who I was, being a passionate surfer. And I commented, I said, "Is that Philippe Toledo? I recognise the stickers on the board." And they were responses, and you weren't sure about whether or not that was him.
No, but I have no idea.
But by you posting something you're interested in and passionate about, and something that tied in with your business, after recently interviewing Jack McCoy, who was on your podcast as well.
Yep.
That's where I picked it up, and I thought, this is good, this is cool, this is what I like, this appeals to me. And us speaking on this call today is testament to this whole question. I think it's fascinating and nailed it right there.
Yeah, great. So for those that have, like you had that journey about overcoming your fears or trying to work through that process, what's the best starting point? If someone was listening today and they just didn't know what to do, what would be your advice?
Just fucking start. Like, it's... Let me tell you this. I've had people in the past 4 or 5 weeks reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn, Facebook, the whole lot.
Yep.
I've got this great idea. I want to meet up with you. Okay, cool. No worries. Let's catch up, have a chat. And I was seeing these amazing ideas, right?
Yes.
And I said, okay, so what's the next step? What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know, I might do this, might do that. And I can see they're not starting. They've got this fantastic idea and there's too much fear around whatever. And I get it, the whole lot of stuff around finance and security and certainty and all that BS. But you just got to fucking start, and you got to make the first step. And then you'll get some feedback, and there'll be generally a problem, and then you need to solve that problem. And then once you solve that problem, you move to the next part, and there'll be another problem, and then you need to solve that problem, and you just keep moving forward. And most people are savvy enough to figure it out. If they're not, get some help, get some advice, get a mentor. But keep moving forward, and solve the problem that you're faced with today. Because steps 4, 5, and 6, you'll be able to take care of them when you get there. Take care of 1, 2, and 3 now, and then when you get to 4, 5, and 6, you can take care of them. And it's just never ending. In the whole future phase, how that came from being a simple idea to being brought to life was based upon just taking a step, figuring it out, and that's it. It's simple, it's practical, it works, it's not overcomplicated, and it's just about taking that first step.
Love it. Perfect. So a few quick questions. If I were to give you, because of course I'm God, an extra hour a day, what would you do with it?
Oh, can I say sleep?
Yes, you can.
I already sleep a lot. Like, I think I sleep, 6, 7 hours a day, and that's heaps for me. But an extra hour in a day, what would I do with it? I think I'd, if I could give that extra hour a day to my family and my wife and my kids, if I could give that to them too, I'd say spend time with them for an extra hour a day would be what I'd do with it. That's what I'd do for sure.
No, that's great. And what's the bad advice you hear people give frequently?
Not necessarily bad advice, but I've observed many people talk about their ideas for business or a product or a service so much with their friends and they talk to their friends about this idea, and it's just like they get the feeling from their approval, or not disapproval, more so from their approval from their friends about their business idea. And it's like they get so much joy from sharing it and somebody saying that's a great idea, that they get too much good feeling from it, and then they actually don't do anything with the idea because they've already got the secondary gain payoff from it, rather than actually getting out there and doing it. So it's not necessarily bad advice, but what I say to people, if you've got a great idea, shut your mouth, don't talk to your friends about it. Speak to people who can actually help you bring it to life. But yeah, don't talk to your friends and your family about it, please. Like, just don't do that.
It's brilliant advice, I have to say. I totally 100% agree with you on that. And what's your superpower?
Oh, my superpower. My brain.
Awesome, I love it.
I think spending so much time alone growing up as an only child, I think it really accelerated my depth of, depth of feeling or awareness, and I'm super sensitive. So I've been in meetings where the other person said to me, "I've just got goosebumps," and I said, "Yeah, I've just got goosebumps too." And I was like, we both looked at our arms, and we've got little pimples on our arms, and it's all standing up on end, and like, wow. And I'm super sensitive, and I'm able to feel what other people are feeling, and it's just something naturally that I've been blessed with. It's one of my gifts. So I'd say my superpower is a heightened sense of awareness, and being super sensitive to what other people are feeling. And with that, I'm able to help, obviously, a lot, because I've got that intuition into how other people are feeling. And if they're not feeling so great, then I can generally, with a few pointed words, help them feel a lot better than what they're feeling at the time. So I'd say that's my great superpower.
Fantastic. And lastly, a first step question. What's the first step to stepping away from your current job or life and following your passion?
Get clear on who you are first. The first step is to get super clear on who you are, what you're passionate about, what you love to do, what you enjoy doing. Getting clear on your strengths and weaknesses, getting really clear on what what you can bring to the table in terms of your capabilities, your personality style, your gifts, all those type of things. Get super clear on all that first, because then from there, that's when you set up the next part as well. Right? So these are all my skill sets. This is who I am as a person. This is what I love to do. This is what I'm passionate about. Get all that clear. That's the first bit. Get that done, and then it's okay. So where can I take me and add value to somebody else, and then taking the steps necessarily to bring that to life. So I'd say that's the first thing to do. Wow.
Thanks, Brent. I really enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you for being so honest and so transparent and open about your journey. And I love all the stories that you've shared with us. So thanks very much.
Pleasure. It's been great to be on the show. I'm stoked.
Thank you for listening to the First Step podcast with Narissa Show. For more great stories on those who took the first step to change their world, subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.